4 varicosums. None of them survived. Not one. Maybe 5. We could have had 5, but 4 for sure. Hi everyone, it's Melissa, your plantita abogada here at Tasteful Notes, coming to you today with a plant care, self-care episode, I guess. That's what we'll call this series. So today I've got a problematic plant. I'm going to go introduce it to you. I'll go ahead and give you an idea of its care, and then I'll go ahead and tell you what I'm doing to fix its problem, okay? Yeah. Anyway, for today's episode, we've got the beautiful Philodendron Majestic. It's still pretty, but it's just not living its best life. Not even its half best life. We'll go ahead and get this taken care of. But first things first, I'd like to run through our 3 disclaimers really quick. 1, KKB tayo, kanya-kanyang bayad. For our Westerner friends, that means that we each pay our own way. Really pretty plant. I would totally recommend it for anyone. I don't want you spending rent money because I ain't paying any plant child support for any decisions you make. Okay? Number 2, I'm not an expert. Any factual information that I do provide to you in this video will be flashed on the screen, and it will also be in the description box down below. And number 3, since I'm not an expert, I'd like you to find the people in your community who are experts. These people can actually provide you information such as growing conditions, the kind of soil types that you need, where you can find these plants. Yeah, those are the people that you want to get in touch with to get second opinions about things that I share with you in this video, okay? And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and introduce our plant for the plant care self-care episode. Like I said earlier, this is the Philodendron Majestic. It's not too majestic in its current condition. I figured that this would be a perfect plant for this very first episode, just because we dealt with the Philodendron Royalty episode last week. The Philodendron Majestic is a hybrid of Philodendron soderoi and Philodendron verrucosum. Philodendron soderoi, I got one last year from Ate May Tolentino. It's doing great. It's a great plant. I love it. It is a plant that is not tissue culture because she got hers before the plantdemic, so we didn't have to worry about the tissue culture craze back then, and you know, the fallout from the soderoi scandal. But it's still a great plant. It's a cutting of her plant, and I couldn't be any happier with it. Verrucosum, on the other hand, the other parent of this plant, is a nightmare for me. So the place I live in the Philippines, it's considered a tropical savanna. So yeah, I live in a tropical country, so that's where the tropical part comes from, right? But the savanna part, completely unexpected. I never expected to actually find out that such a place exists in the Philippines, because I grew up on Guam, I grew up in Iloilo, I grew up in places where it's a little bit more temperate. Even Manila, where I grew up there, we could always drive somewhere, and I mean, it wasn't as dry as it is here. And to cut the story short, Philodendron verrucosum does not do well in really dry conditions. Oh, big surprise, right? It's an aroid. So I've had 4, I think. They're just so hard to care for in this area, and I've come to terms with the fact that I don't have the growing conditions it needs. Hence, remember when I said in my disclaimer number 3, find the experts in your area? Those are the people who can tell you what grows well in your area. I wish I had one for my area, but you know, I'll survive. The soderoi has these beautiful green leaves with these beautiful silver variegations. I'll call it a pattern or variegation on it. It's just really pretty. The verrucosum is usually green, but when it comes out, it's got these beautiful, I guess, violet coloring. So when it unfurls, it's green and violet, or green and red. Really pretty. And then the undersides are red. The soderoi has really short or small, bumpy pubescence. It's barely there compared to the verrucosums. From my observations and from my personal experiences, the Philodendron Majestic takes more after the Philodendron soderoi than it does the Philodendron verrucosum in terms of growing, okay? Because, wow, surprise, surprise, everybody, it's growing and it's flourishing, just not in the way that I want it to. Both parents are climbers, so I should have known better than to just leave it in its pot. I left it in one of the greenhouses, let it go crazy, and never gave it the attention it deserves, and now it's twisted and a hot mess. So it displays the beautiful silver patterns that the southe displays. So it has this beautiful red back, as you can see here. And while I do see some silver patches on it, you do see a little bit of the red that remains on the newly unfurled leaf. So verrucosum and southe, the best of both worlds in this one plant. The petioles are red, reddish. So newer ones come out redder. Who's after you? This guy, yeah. So the petioles remain red to a certain point, and then they start tapering off towards the very, very top of the petiole rather than the entire thing. There is some pubescence on it. You could feel it. You may not be able to see it as much as the verrucosum. I think it's probably, yeah, you could barely see it at all, but it's there. It's definitely there. It's a lot more than the southe. The southe is stubbly, kind of like sand, and not as much as this. I mean, this is from top to bottom of the petiole. It's showing the climbing pattern that the parents both had. Based on what I've read, it's a great plant once you get it climbing. That's our goal today. The Majestic has a really cool background to it. It's thought to have been developed by Keith Henderson. And if you remember from last week's episode, we had a lot of Macaulay hybrids. Well, Keith Henderson is supposed to be the contemporary of the Macaulays in terms of, I guess, hybridizing plants. So the Majestic is not a accidental hybrid. It is actually one that was intentionally made possibly by Keith Henderson, thought to be by Keith Henderson. And this is according to the information on the International Aroid Society's cultivar page. I believe it was Neil Crafter who actually registered the plant and gave it the name Majestic, and it's such a great name for it. It really is. Let me go ahead and get my notes just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The release year of the Philodendron Majestic, according to Neil Crafter, is 1970. So again, contemporary of the Macaulays, was releasing plants, hybrids around that same time. The seed parent is thought to be the Philodendron southe, and the pollen parent is thought to be the verrucosum. The southe is believed to be the seed parent just because the Majestic shows a lot more southe than it does verrucosum. Thank goodness it does. Really neat. The application, the accepted application by Neil Crafter, says that the mature plant has large, beautiful, majestic foliage, hence its name. And I'll go ahead and share the pictures that the International Aroid Society actually have on their website. It's beautiful. It's such an awesome plant. This is interesting. I didn't know this because my plant's still young. Juvenile leaf blades are quite comparable to Philodendron southe with prominent gray variegation, but it fades away almost entirely or becomes quite muted when the foliage matures. But based on what the leaves look like when they get bigger, I mean, it's an acceptable trade-off, really. Really, really nice leaves. The emergent leaves are bronze in color with lime green venation. The veins become darker as the leaf hardens off to a darker green as well. The leaf blade undersides are heavily tinged red, and the petioles are rough textured for almost the entire length of the petiole, and it's usually red. Usually red. You got the red. And remember earlier what I told you about the petioles? It felt like it was from top to bottom with the texture. There it is. Same thing. Really pretty. Beautiful plant. And we got to get working on this guy. So materials that we're going to need for today. We're going to need something to contain the potting media from both pots. I've got my little bacha, as we call it here. It's a little basin. So this is where I'm going to be putting my stuff. You find yours. You know what I really want? I want one of those cool foldable repotting thingies. That's what I could use in my life. Should probably find one. You're also going to need a cutting instrument, a cutting implement, and pots, because I don't know what I'm dealing with. Best to have different size pots. And then finally, we're going to need potting mix. So I got my aeroid mix right here. My aeroid mix is a mixture of pumice, leca, I have acacia leaves, so leaf litter. I also have tree bark and some vermicast in it. Okay, no snakes inside. So when we found it in the greenhouse, we noticed that its pot had cracked. It's a little plastic pot, a little nursery pot, and that it had found an empty pot and rooted itself in it. What I'm thinking now, and I'll say this right off the bat, this is how I'm thinking of approaching this plant. Since it's rooted in a second pot, if the roots look good, I might just cut this plant and give this a new pot and something to climb on. I do see a growth point right after or right before the rooted nodes. So it's very, very possible that I could do that. But the big but here, because we like big butts, is that this pot needs to be well rooted as well. I don't want to cut this and have this poor little node suffer on its own without any roots on this side. Let's go see what we're dealing with very, very carefully. Start with this guy, the broken one. Since the pot is already broken, I'm just going to rip this thing apart. Okay, let's see what we're dealing with here. My old media consisted of smaller amounts of pumice, tree bark. I don't see any more leaves here, but that's fine. They break down over time. So, based on our plan, or the plan of action, right, that I was saying earlier, I wanted to cut to about 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth node, in between the fourth and fifth nodes, but I needed to make sure that the roots are actually viable, that they can handle cutting that far. Okay, the roots look good. They are workable. I need to cover this up as I look at the other parts of the plant so that they don't dry up. It is wicked hot here in the Philippines, and gotta get this done as quick as I can. So this is what we're dealing with for 5 nodes. And let's cover this up for a little bit. I want to see what else. Oh, okay, so that's why. I have a aerial root that went ahead and embedded itself in the ground as well. So that's good. That is very good. The aerial root is directly underneath that growth point that I was talking about. So the more roots, the better. It'll help it acclimate fast. It'll help it make that transition fast. I'm sure we'll see this growth point come out in no time. Now this is going to be a challenge. Okay, this is a lot more perlite and pumice on top. Wow, okay. Oh, Lord. Okay, that wasn't planned. Give me a second. Are we okay? Is everybody okay? Good. Okay, so my worry was that I wouldn't have enough root to support the top part, but it is quite well rooted, friends. Quite well rooted. Very nicely rooted. And I think we can get away with this. Let me cut this off real quick. It's just getting in the way. Put you over here. And let's untangle you and see what we can do here. Okay. So, in spite of the untangling, it looks like I'm going to have to live with some of it. Some curvature. That's fine. I'll just tie them together to give it more stability. But see how pretty it could be already? So I'll go ahead and make that chop right now, and we'll get started on the repotting. Looks like a stingless bee. Okay, we're gonna cut right about here. Very good. Separate you two. Since I have new material. Oh, it feels nice. Very nice. Okay. When it comes to choosing pots for your plants, I tend to choose pots that are just a size bigger in terms of the root ball rather than the pot, because sometimes what comes out of the pot isn't exactly something that belongs to the pot, right? Or should have been in the pot. I guess when I say that, it's because when you choose bigger pots tend to hold more aeroid mix, more potting mix, and that's a problem because more potting mix means that when you wet it, it holds more water as well around. There's just more of everything and little itty bitty amount of root. So the problem with that is that when you have too much water, your potting mix tends to get waterlogged and you run the risk of also having root rot that way. So I tend to choose a pot that is, one, well draining, lots of ways for water to come out, and then two, just bigger than the root ball that I need. Now, we'll go ahead and cover this one later, but I want to start with the first part. So to illustrate what I was talking about earlier, we have this much root for this big a pot. It just seems a little bit excessive. So I might find something to go down to instead. Sorry, baby, sorry. And this seems like it might work. However, if you look at the bottom, not a lot of ways for water to get out. If we put in this one, oh yeah, that one works out quite well. We've got a lot of ways for water to escape. If I'm not mistaken, this is actually an orchid pot, but because it's rainy season here in the Philippines, as much as this size would fit perfectly, I'm willing to deal with this size just because of the fact that water is going to be able to escape in many, many ways. My potting media, I always make sure that it's damp before I put it in, just so that when I transfer the plant to its new container, not going to be too much shock. So the part that we cut is right here. It'll be able to air dry. We don't have any problems. I'll go ahead and give you guys an update of this little guy in a few weeks. But let me finish repotting him so I can move on to the bigger one. Okay, lots of leaf litter in this one. And here it is. It's not pretty. It doesn't look pretty, but it'll have a better chance now to grow better. So we've got a slight angle. I'm sure you can see it here now. Got a slight angle of growing, but as it grows up, I'll be sure to put it in a different container so that we can kind of change the angle a little bit. Yeah, we'll do that. And we'll watch out for that growth point. Quite excited for this. It's been a while since I actually propagated. Now this guy, oh my gosh, it's got so much root. Okay, let's go see what we're dealing with here. Okay, look at that. Really, really nice. I'm going to be putting it back in its old pot. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I do need space for the pole. Yep. And it's looking gorgeous already. It's sideways, but we need space for the pole and we need some space for the roots. And this one fits the pole requirement better. The other side would be fine if I only needed space for the roots, but like I said, gotta put a pole in, so yeah. Anyway, let me go ahead and get started on that. So I'm back. A couple of things, 3 things that I forgot to mention that we're gonna need is a pole, scissors, because we don't want to mess around with our shears, and then something to attach the plant to the pole. So here we go. Here's our pole, moss pole that we made, homemade, and it will settle well. I will just need to put some media at the bottom, and I'll go ahead and use one of these pots to do that actually. Okay baby, let me move you out real quick, and let me do this here. Okay, so we got the back kind of set up. We need to put our plant inside. Let me get the hair out of the way. I should have worn an apron. So many regrets. Let me move it here. So when I repot recently cut nodes, I don't normally put the node straight in the pot. I actually make sure that I leave it out to dry. So don't bury that node. Let it dry. Just because my potting mix is moist, I don't want it to, I guess, rot, cause some stem rot issues. So I try to keep that guy out of the potting mix, on top of the potting mix at least. So the other parts of the plant, the parts that aren't cut, it's fine to go ahead and put them under soil, especially if it promotes aerial root growth. Yeah, we want to do that. Let me take it out. Sorry, baby. So far, so good. It is looking well, but I want to give it a little bit more. Okay, if you guys can cooperate, I would like some more bark. Beautiful. So again, keep that node out. Keep it dry. And keep it well. We're done with that part. Let's go ahead and get to positioning it on the pole, because we want to actually, repotting was just one part of the plant care of this episode. The second part is fixing it. So we've got a curve right here, curved back, and then we've got another curve right up here. And it doesn't look like it's gonna do okay curving. So what I'd like to do is test it out. How can I fix this? How can I use it to my advantage? There we go. Boom, baby. So the front was busy with a lot of stem, and the back doesn't have to be that busy. There we go. And when we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and bend this guy down just a little bit. So whichever way you can make this work for your plant is the best way. There's not just any one way. So the curve that I was talking about, the immediate curve that went into like a U-turn, it's not going to work out. It's going to stick out right here on the side. Can you see my fingers? There we are. So it's going to be sticking out a little bit over on the side, but we can actually use it to our advantage because it actually goes down. There's a second curve that I mentioned earlier, and the second curve is actually pointing down from that point. So here it is, it's pointing down, and we could tie it there, and we can actually help the plant go upright like it is now. Only thing is, I'm gonna need to use my ties now. So I cut my Velcro ties into, what is this, maybe 1.5 to 2 inch length. And then I went ahead and cut it in half. As you can see, it's a lot smaller. That way it allows me an opportunity to get into the squares of this pole, of this moss pole. Now, I know I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that this is the first of the plant care self-care series. And I'm saying self-care because, you know, if you are a regular follower, you may have noticed that I missed a week of videos, and it's just I've had a lot happen in the past 6-7 weeks. a lot. So it all started out when my husband went in to get checked by an orthosurgeon for his back. And he's okay. He's not okay. We're gonna have to deal with it. He's gonna have to deal with it until it's operable. At this point, it isn't. So we're just gonna have to work on that part. But that's his business to share if he wants to. What happened to me is that I was complaining about possibly having a heart attack or stroke, and it was because of the left side of my body, especially my arm. It kept going numb. And sometimes it felt like it was on fire. Sometimes it was really painful. And the doctor had no idea what was going on. She sent me to get a test. I'll go ahead and flash the name of the test at the bottom of the screen. And the test, it dealt with putting needles in my arms to see if there are electrical currents there. And it worked out well in my arm because I guess it's not supposed to show any current when you're at rest, right? But as soon as, I don't know how she did it, she figured, let me go ahead and check your neck on your left side. And as soon as she put it in, the needle on the machine was going nuts, and she put it in another place and same thing. And she's like, you need to go to your ortho and show them these results, okay? And you need to ask for an MRI. We did that. Ortho saw it and he's like, yeah, you might have a problem here. This is my husband's ortho while we were going for his appointment. And he immediately wrote me up orders for an MRI. We did that. MRI came back and I've got something wrong with my neck. Fine. Something that will not improve. Something that's degenerative. I can't remember again off the top of my head what it's called because so much has happened recently. And he's like, you're going to have to get surgery on this eventually because it's a matter of quality of living. And at that point, the quality of my life was still fine. I was still going around doing things I needed to do. Still great, right? So during the MRI, they found something else. They found they call it an incidental finding. So it was accident, right? They just found it just by chance. And they found a mass on my thyroid. And oh man, that was a mess in itself too. So because there was a mass on my thyroid, I had to go get that checked out as well. And went to the doctor to get that checked out, and she was like, yeah, I'll need you to get an ultrasound. See, I'm telling you, there's so many things that happened, and it happened over weeks. She's like, yeah, you need to go get checked out, and you can go ahead and come back with the results when you get them. And when we got them, we were hoping it was a cyst, the mass on my throat, just because it's kind of large. The bigger mass actually covers the entire right, I guess, side of my thyroid. That's how big it was. It's still there. We had an ultrasound done, and it actually came out that the mass, she couldn't tell what it was. She said that it didn't seem to contain water, and that worried my doctor. She's like, okay, we actually need to have what do they call it? An ultrasound guided biopsy, just to rule out that it's cancerous. And at this point, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. These two things happen. So we did that, but waiting for the ultrasound definitely messed with my head. I won't lie about that. We are practicing self-care, so I'm not gonna lie to myself about how I felt. It definitely messed with my head because, serious things like this, you start thinking, okay, what's going to happen to my kids if it's cancer? What's going to happen to me if it's cancer? All of that stuff. It turned out it was benign, thank goodness. But the mass is still there. In fact, it's right in this general area. I don't know if I can feel it. There it is. So it's this thing right here. It's big. And it's there. And, when I finally saw my doctor, when I saw my doctor and she prescribed the ultrasound guided biopsy, she also prescribed me medication because pre-diabetic. Yay. Oh, man. So there are some people who don't handle metformin well, and it turns out I'm one of them. And it was quite horrible because she was gone on vacation and I couldn't reach her. And I just decided at one point to just stop taking the medication because I was ill. I was laying on the floor ill, laying on the couch ill actually. And it was bad. So this is like week after week of things that happened. There were more things that happened that I would prefer not to share just because it's gross. At least I think it's gross. And then I want to say maybe a week ago. Yeah, about a week ago, actually, 8 days ago, I couldn't stand up. I could not stand up. I was in so much pain, I could not stand up. And the worst part about it is I'm used to getting back aches, right? Used to it. I mean, it comes with the territory, age. So I wasn't thinking much of it, really, when I started getting backaches. But this was something different. I took pain medication like I normally do. I couldn't move. I used the heating pack. I couldn't move. So every time I had to go to the bathroom, I had to get up, I was screaming in pain. It was bad. My husband finally called my ortho, and the ortho's like, that doesn't sound right. It's definitely sciatic pain, so sciatica. We need to find out what's causing it, because sciatica is just one part of the equation. So another MRI. And this time the MRI showed up as a herniated disc, but a herniated disc that's referred to as an extrusion. Actually, they called it sequestered disc at first, and my doctor's like, no. After looking at my plates, he's like, no, this is an extrusion. And he was like, you need to get surgery immediately. You know, forget the surgery for your neck. You know, you can wait on that. That's not urgent. This one is urgent. Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. And that's why I'm trying to practice self-care with my plants, because, you know, it's one thing. I used to like to think that being on the go all the time was good for me, because it takes my mind off things. I'm one of those people who has to be on the go. My mind's always thinking. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas, so I write in my notebook. But this back problem has forced me to slow down. I can't even pick up my baby. I'm not supposed to. And I mean, I'm missing out on a lot of friends. I'll be missing out on events. We have a Bruno Mars concert coming up. That'll be my son's first concert. And I mean, you know, it's sad that I won't be there to see him. Yeah, I remember my first concert. So, yeah. I've decided to go ahead and make, I guess, a little series of plant care, self-care, and discuss whatever crosses my mind then. But if I disappointed any of you by missing that 1 week of video, I'm really sorry about that. It was really something that I had no control over. None. But I'm really glad to be able to still make videos while I can. I love my ortho. I think he is the greatest. And according to the second doctor I went to get a second opinion, because like I said in my disclaimers, you always get a second opinion, he is the greatest. They thought very, very highly of him. And they were like, if he's willing to do your surgery, you should go to him. So 2 doctors say that I need surgery. So eventually down the line, I'll be, you know, I'll have to, I guess, rely on making videos up front so that I leave you guys with something, and so that I don't get in my mind again. Because it's just a scary place to be when you're terrified of what's coming and all the bad things that could happen. As a pessimist, I can't help it, folks. Okay? Anyway, so all that babbling, and this is this gorgeous girl now. So I'll go ahead and take video of the backside so you see what I've done. I mean, she's a mess in the back, but we're trying to encourage bigger leaves and better growth by having her rest on the bottom with this new vine. And if she ever roots, I guess I'll go ahead and propagate her from there as well. So let's see what happens. I'm really excited about this, and I really want to make her big. So if this works out, I'll have a second Majestic, and if she roots here, I have a third Majestic, and I'll have just Majestic all over the place. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are all in great health and are surrounded by people and circumstances that are good for you. So let me know what you guys think about this whole plant care, self-care series. If you're interested in continuing on my healthcare messes and journeys, or hearing more about my opinions on things, let me know in the comment section down below. If this video helped you, feel free to give it a thumbs up, like this video, click the subscribe button, and click on that notification bell so that you get notified of my future content. If you miss me during the week, if my once a week videos are not enough, check me out on Facebook. I'm there as Tasteful Nodes. And finally, if you just want to look at pretty pictures, check me out on Instagram. I'm there as Tasteful Nodes as well. Okay guys, until next time, sa uulitin, keep your nodes classy and tasteful. Bye.